Hey, what the hell is up, everybody? It's that Halfbreed here, coming back with you with the final part of our Every Leader installment, where I go over the deck list that I used to finish my speed run of one win with every single leader in the One Piece TCG game. Took us just a little under 12 hours to complete, 45 deck lists, 45 Ws. And today we got black and yellow, and all the other colors we did in one video, but these two we're going to stick together. Since they're still kind of new colors, there's not that many leaders in total. If I did only the black leaders, there would just be 6 or 5 leaders, and then yellow, 6 leaders, and yellow would only have 4 or 5. So I think it's better that we just do them both together in a fun little way, and we'll get over it pretty quickly. We'll get through it pretty quickly. So to start here, we got our boy Smoker, one of the first black leaders out there. Still not too bad. Definitely did get a top 32, top 32 at one of the recent regionals in Australia. It's still fine. It still definitely feels like with Smoker, you're mainly now focused on assembling what I like to call the Oppenheimer combo, where you're just assembling the nuclear bomb of 10-drop Kuzan into 9-drop Shanks, wipe their whole board. You know, before you're kind of slow, you're playing catch-up, but this combo catches you up instantly by itself. The one win I got with the deck, I just had an opening 5-card hand, and I had a Kuzan and a Shanks in my opening hand, and I was just like, well, I guess this is just my plan for the game. All I need to do is not die until I can play both of these cards. And then, for sure, we did wipe the whole board and everything. And this is basically just a deck that's full of good black cards. You got all the Admirals, all the 2Ks. We got the new cards of Sabo and Barto for extra blockers and extra counter power. Fukuro, of course, is one of the non-Navy cards. And then, once again, I can't, I mentioned it already in the Garp video, but when we were talking about the Garp deck list. But this Kobe from Starter Deck 8 is really, really powerful. And it's one of those cards where it just can stabilize you by itself. If you have Kobe plus a few blockers, it just means every turn you're going to kill something of theirs. And certainly, it combos really good with 10-drop Kuzan too, especially when you don't have Shanks, where you just play the Kobe, you kill one of their things, you don't have to discard a card, which is so huge in this game and in this deck for sure. And then if you can defend it, you just get to do it again next turn. You know, just rest it, destroy something. Block, rest it, destroy something. And your opponent's not going to be able to play enough things to fight through, you know, Kuzan plus Kobe or Kuzan plus Shanks. And you got a lot of control with the cost with your leader. You get a lot of nice 7K swings early against the aggro decks too. So you can put on a decent race against decks with your leader and still have enough clear and other things to, you know, keep yourself safe. It's still tough against red decks, but you certainly can win if you hit enough blockers in aggro, and Kuzan as a wonderful little aggro source. Alright, next up we got the other, or one of the other mono black decks, the deck that I played a bunch before set 4, but ultimately had to stop playing just because the power level wasn't quite there, and especially since most people were playing Zoro and Law, which both of those decks are just really tough matchups for this deck, then it means that I don't really want to play it as much anymore. But with yellow popping up a bunch, this deck is still fine. You have, I think the Airdor version is now definitely the version you want to play, rather than trying to play 8 Searchers, which is what I was trying to do for a while. Airdor just helps you be aggressive enough by being able to play a 5 Dawn play for 4, being able to search out something that might be strong, and it fills your graveyard enough to let you play Rush Lucci against the yellow decks to be aggressive enough. And you can still fit in Sabo and Barto, which feels pretty good. Now, there's a special secret spice version of Lucci that is Dressrosa and Dressrosa and CP9 that a friend of mine has been making, Mugiwara, and this is a special secret that I'm going to let you in on. It's just a sideways deck list. I'm sorry it's not as nice, but if you want to try some secret spice with Erdor and Lucci, and you get to play Rebecca and Spandam, and you use Erdor to fill your graveyard for the 7-drop Gear 4 Luffy, you know, maybe give this deck a whirl. It's spicy. I'm not sure if it's good yet, but it has potential. And this is the stock standard Erdor CP9 deck that might get better. You know, you're still relying a lot on your Lucci leader ability to restand after pitching 2 cards. But this is definitely one of the decks where a lot of other decks got a lot more powerful, and this kind of like, it needed help to begin with, and all it got was just like a penny or whatever, you know? It feels like this deck needs 50 cents to be good, and all it got was a penny. So, even though I really like Lucci and I really like all the black cards, I still think this deck... Oh, sorry, excuse me. This deck is kind of medium. Alright, and next we're going to move on to a kind of fun deck. Kind of for fun deck, but it actually ended up playing out better than I expected to. And that's Black Sakazuki. So the starter deck, Black Sakazuki, I thought this deck was kind of just a troll to begin with. But it ended up playing out a lot better than I thought. Especially since I was leaning a lot on these 2 cards here. Namely, Promo Morgan, which might be a little hard to get in paper. And also Starter Deck Sengoku. So these cards are just 2 additional characters that let you be a more aggressive black deck, where we actually do plan on attacking the opponent a bunch. But it basically means that you have like 12, 11 Kuzans in your deck, right? You have Kuzan, which gives -4, Sengoku gives -4, Morgan gives -3, and you're just setting up, and we also have Great Eruption and Ice Age, and you're just setting up to make your opponent's characters cost 0, so that you can activate your Sakazuki, but still get value, because the way that you're making your opponent's characters cost 0 is by attacking them, rather than trying to do things like Suru or Tashigi. Of course, Kuzan is really strong in this deck. You play it, and then it's really easy to just kill whatever you want with the Sakazuki leader effect. You know, Sabo and Barto feel like they just go in every black deck from now until infinity. Just really powerful value. And we have Great Eruption 2 as a nice cycler, cost reducer. And the game we won, we actually got to get it off trigger, make our opponent discard a card, which was really sweet. And so on and so forth. Alright, so then the next black deck we have to look at here is, as I like to call it, Luffy with Dreads! Black Luffy. Black Luffy is invited to the cookout. Of course, you know, a lot of these decks are going to look really similar. Like, the Sakazuki one is the most different. But there's not much of a difference between Black Luffy and Smoker. Just a little bit heavier on the Kobe's here, because you do want to just destroy a lot more and get value off of your leader effect. You still got the Kuzan and Shanks combo. It's definitely true that Luffy and Smoker are really similar to each other in a lot of ways. Smoker is slightly better at being the more aggressive color, and Luffy is slightly better at being the more defensive color. But they both do similar things, and it's up to you, I think, to decide which leader you prefer. I think you could play the same exact deck list with either leader and still have it perform well. It's just up to you and the heart of the cards, I think, for the most part. You know, Admiral's always good. Sabo and Barto, always good. We can sneak the Isho in there. And every now and then we get to nuke our opponents just for fun. I have so much fun being like, incoming nuclear bomb, legalized nuclear bombs, boom, and then just blow up their board. Really fun. I never get tired of saying that. Alright, next we have the multicolor black deck, and that is Black and Yellow Big Mom. Now, this deck is basically Queen, whereas Queen plays blue, this deck plays black instead, but it's still the same kind of idea of we're just trying to kill everything the opponent plays and get to the point of the game where we're just going to activate our leader effect every single turn. We're going to attack for 7, and we're going to gain a life. We're going to attack for 7, we're going to gain a life. And you're just always trying to go back and forth between, we go to 2, then we go to 1, then we go back to 2, then we go to 0, then we go to 1, then we go to 0, then we go to 1, then we go to 2, you know. That's the idea. You're just constantly ping-ponging back and forth there. We got a lot of powerful triggers to help. We got the Sanji blockers, Brûlé blockers, and instead of the blue Boa Hancock, we got the new Nefeltari Vivi, which is an STO8, which is another trigger blocker. Still want access to Thunderbolt just in case, and we got Arrow as well, which gains us life and is basically a guard point when we have low life, which is really easy with our 4 life leader. And then we're just relying on our 10 drops and 9 drops to gain us life. Of course, Yamato, really strong. Gain a life with leader again after. And if you have any of these big expensive cards in your hand and you can't cast them, you can always just discard them to Lin, you know, and gain a life instead. So if you like Queen, if you like Control, if you like dragging games out to a very long point, but you also just want to play 10-drop Big Mom, then maybe give this deck a try. I'm disappointed that I didn't install the alt art yet, but we're going to fix that problem and we're going to give this deck another try and get a second win with it. And, you know, that's already all the black decks, you know, all the black decks that we haven't covered already in previous videos. You know, so now it's just on to the mono yellow decks. And we've only got a few of those left. And a lot of them are going to be basically the same. So, first of all, we have the very standard, very well-known. Everyone's seen this deck. It's one of the best decks in the game right now, if not the best deck. No, it's not the best deck. I think it's, if you ask me, it's the second best deck in the game right now. That's yellow Katakuri. Just having access to these incredibly aggressive starts. A hell of a huge amount of triggers where your opponent can sometimes just lose the game off of you having, you know, 3 or more triggers in your life. And, of course, the end-all, be-all, biggest 10-drop in the game, biggest thing they've ever printed, Charlotte Lin. This is just one of those characters where it doesn't matter if they have Red Rock. It doesn't matter if they have counter or whatever. You play it, they lose a life, you gain a life. And even if they kill it, you got value right away. And how are they going to kill a 12k? It's the biggest stat line in the game right now. So I'm a big fan of playing Yamato in your Katakuri deck list and not playing 7-drop Big Mom. But that's up to you. I'm also a believer of, you know, man, I shit on this card so long and so hard. But I just have to admit that I was wrong and that Shirahoshi is good. And getting Shirahoshi out of trigger helps when you have a million non-counters in your hand. And putting Shirahoshi back into life with your Katakuri is a really strong play. And I just gotta swallow my pride and admit that I was incorrect. And Shirahoshi is welcome to the good cards. The good cards basket. I just have to take that L. Okay, next we got the other yellow deck, which is Big Mama, and this deck list is really the exact same as Katakuri. We got some tiny differences here in that we want to play extra crackers and extra brulees because we can put them back in with our Lin, but the unfortunate thing with the yellow decks is there's so many cards that are just basically mandatory at this point, it feels like, right? You have to play Pudding, you have to play Paraspero, you have to play 10-drop, you have to play Stroizen, you have to play Katakuri, you have to play Capone, you have to play Sanji, you have to play Amande, and you have to play some number of Thunderbolt, and then that kind of only really leaves like 4 to 8 flex slots in any yellow deck, and that's really what you're playing around. Number 1 deck in the format is Law. Number 1 deck in the format is Law. It is the deck that beats up on all the yellow decks. Like Big Mom, like Katakuri. You know, I I don't know. I can't say much about Lin Lin. I do think Lin Lin is the best yellow deck against Rebecca and Nami, if that even means anything, because obviously with Lin Lin you can take cards out of your life, both versus Rebecca and versus Nami for extra value, since those decks basically never attack you. Outside of that, I don't know. There's not much to say. Unless your locals is filled with a lot of Rebeccas and Namis, there's just better yellow leaders to play, unfortunately. Like this other one that is slightly better than Big Mom. Probably not as good as Katakuri, but still good. Here we got yellow Yamato. This deck list is a little different because it is the yellow deck that really does like playing 7-drop Lin Lin. This is the deck that really actually wants to go first, and you just want to try and have the aggressive curve of Pudding into Perispero, into Randolph, into 7-drop, into 9-drop. You just have a really good odd curve, you know, odd cost curve that you want to try and focus on as often as possible. And you just have cards for some extra card advantage like Sanji. A little bit more focus on 9-drop, and you don't have access to 10-drop Big Mom, which of course really hurts. That's the biggest difference of this deck, but it does mean you're slightly better against red decks because you have a 6k leader on defense, which can really make it more difficult for decks like Zoro and Law to attack you effectively. But still, it's still probably slightly worse than Katakuri. Still strong, obviously, but slightly worse than Katakuri. And then here, last, but certainly not least, one of the best decks once OPO5 starts coming out. Everybody's been playing this deck and enjoying it, and I really enjoy it too. And that's Enel. Now, Enel, you get a bunch of... Enel is another deck that's like Monocolor Queen, or, you know, similar to the Black-Yellow Big Mom, where you're going to be going back and forth between 1 and 0 and 1 and 0 really often. Whenever you hit 0 for the first time, you can discard a card to gain a life. And this ability is really, really hard to play around, man. It's really tough to play around. Especially when you do finally, like, they're at 1 and you attack them and they gain a life and you get them to 0. And then they play Yamato and you're like, oh no. 9-drop Yamato just gained them 2 life. Because they went from 0 to 1, and that 1 is basically 2 life, because you can activate Enel leader ability to gain a second one. So Yamato is really broken in this deck. We have a really powerful combo of Ohm plus Holy, which is basically yellow having access to Brook Nami, and even better sometimes because Ohm searches for Holy, so you can have a Brook that searches for the thing it puts down. Ohm attacks as a 4/6 if you have 2 or less life. Just is a 4/6 period if you have 2 or less life. And, you know, on top of that, provides counter and stuff like that and everything. And is searchable off of Upper Yard and Shura. So you instantly get 2 searchers for the deck. You get a new powerful Brook Nami-esque combo type thing going on. You get a yellow removal spell, which is excellent in Gadatsu, a 5/6 that can kill a lot of characters. It's basically like a Kaku a lot of the time, where it's a 5/6 that kills a 3-drop or less, sometimes a 2-drop or less. And then finally we have this really, really powerful yellow Enel, which is like way stronger than it looks, because yellow Enel is worded in such a way where it says if it would be removed off the field in any way, don't, and trash a life instead. That means you can't red rock this thing, you can't attack this thing, you can't return it to the opponent's hand, you can't do anything. It is completely immune to the first thing that tries to move it anywhere else. And it just makes it really tough. It's so difficult and frustrating and infuriating to try and interact with this card. It just feels absolutely unkillable. It's one of the most unkillable threats they've ever made in the game. So believe me, when this card comes out, buy copies of it. It's really good. It's one of the best yellow cards out there. It's the hardest to remove creature they've ever made. And, you know, you might be thinking, oh, it's just a 7/7 rush. It can't be that good. And I'm telling you, it is. It is that good. And so that's it. That's the end of our series. That's one deck list for every single leader in the entirety of the One Piece game. So there's no way that there wouldn't have been a deck list here that you might not be interested in trying. You can't tell me like, oh, but what about this leader? Have you tried this leader? I can now say yes. I've tried all of them, and if you want a deck list for any leader, you can hit me up on stream. You can obviously look at the rest of the videos. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. Certainly, I hope some other people try to potentially do a speed run of their own. Let me know how fast you can get a win with every single leader in the game. And I hope you guys will, you know, like the video, follow me on stream, obviously, if you can. We stream constantly 4 or 5 days a week, at least, at twitch.tv/dathalfbreed. And, yeah, thanks so much, everybody. Go out there, enjoy some One Piece, sling some cardboard, and let me know if you enjoy any of the decks and try them out. I appreciate you guys a whole bunch, and have a good one.